Hello and welcome to the Movie Husbands Oscars post show. So the Oscars just ended, 5 minutes ago?
Yes, we're on the East Coast in the United States, and it is 11-ish.
Yes.
This is how I look at 11. So
Deal with it.
no comments. I'm gonna go to bed the second we stop filming.
Literally.
So get it out. This is what I look like. What do you think of the show this year? What do you want to talk about first?
I think it was a little bit of a mixed bag.
I
I'm not
agree.
gonna lie.
I agree.
I think tonally it was a little off, so I'll get into a little bit of why I think that's the case. I do think Conan O'Brien did great. I think he did better as the night progressed.
I thought he did a good job because Conan O'Brien has this like a self-deprecating sense of humor that even when his jokes don't land and when they're not funny, they're almost funny because he knows they're not funny. It's weird. Like he's one of the only comedians that can really pull that off, in my opinion. But I think he was able to bring this kind of acid wit to some things. Like his little thing about Carla Sofia Gascon was really funny and to me didn't seem needlessly controversial.
Yes.
So I thought he did a really good job of towing the line with some more controversial statements. He made a little thing about Anora, like it's nice to finally see somebody stand up to a strong Russian person, something like that, a Russian person in power. I thought that he did a really good job. But I agree, the show, in terms of the choices they made of like where to go and what segments to do, I think was a little weird, but he did good with his material.
I think this was due in part to getting rid of the original songs, the performances of those.
Yeah.
And I understand in comparison to last year, the performances were for songs that had a lot more cultural relevance, I think. Last year we had Barbenheimer and Barbie was huge and we had those amazing performances. I understand why they made the decision, but I don't know. Here's my point I think I'm going to make with tonally the beginning of the show. So we start out with these wonderful, absolutely brilliant performances by Ariana Grande and Cynthia Erivo, and they absolutely crushed it. I think actually Cynthia Erivo in particular,
She was very good.
That song that she did, that was fantastic. I don't even know how to say it in other words, but her voice, she just has such a powerful voice and it's so raw and intimate all at the same time. So I just so much credit for that. And then we just go straight from that note tonally into this monologue by Conan O'Brien, which, yes, I think he did a fine job. I think he got better as the night went on. I liked his bits that happened later on more than I did this original bit, but I agree. I like the Carlos Sofia Gascon little joke in there. It was almost an acknowledgement that we are acknowledging what happened, but also we are basically not going to acknowledge her the rest of the show. Because we did not really get much of her at all.
No.
It was almost as if she didn't exist.
She didn't even look like she was seated with the Emilia Perez people. Every time Emilia Perez won something and everybody stood up, I didn't see her anywhere near Zoe Saldana or anybody.
But going from there, Conan O'Brien, I think, did this wonderful little monologue about the serious fires that happened in LA. And I really appreciate that because it was almost reclaiming the concept of awarding people, because he brings up the great point is that this might seem like an affair where it's just like all a bunch of rich people getting together and, lapping ourselves with awards, but it's really deeper than that. There's so many people involved in the process of filmmaking, and there's this connection that we all build due to film, and it's communal. And so I really liked that, the way he worded it and the way he engaged with these ideas. I just thought it was important to reiterate in a world that I think just sees these awards as being so what's the word?
Superficial?
Superficial.
Or superfluous?
Superfluous, I was trying to say.
I agree with you. And especially in a year where we have so many independent films. I mean, we'll talk about Sean Baker in a little bit and a lot of the awards that he won, but you have filmmakers like Sean Baker who like aren't even millionaires. Like they're people who do it because they love it, and it's not like they're Steven Spielberg or they have all these production companies and making all this money on these various things. Like they're true like independent artists who like don't live off of a lot of money. Same with Brady Corbet. Like Brady Corbet like did not pay himself for The Brutalist, and that's one of the reasons that it costs so little money.
Let's get into the first award of the night because Kieran Culkin wins for A Real Pain. We were looking forward to this, of course. His thank you speeches throughout this whole Oscars campaign season and the other awards that have occurred have been quite the highlights of this season. I absolutely adored the kids joke that he had at the end of that.
Yeah, that was great. I mean, the idea that his wife was like, "Oh, well, we can have more kids when you win an Oscar," thinking that he wouldn't win an Oscar, and then he wins an Oscar like 9 months later. Obviously, that was a predictable win, but it's something I'm very happy about. A lot of times I think of Oscar wins too, and we'll talk about this again with Sean Baker, but in terms of like where it guides the industry, and I know that's not always like the fairest way to think about it, but if this helps like Kieran Culkin's career, who's a good actor, if this helps Jesse Eisenberg continue to make films because he seems to be a really promising filmmaker, I think all of that is really good for filmmaking as a whole.
I completely agree. And on that note, we start to see this pattern, I think, evolving as the night is progressing with the next category, which was animated feature, which ended up going to Flow.
A great win.
Yeah, instead of a big budget picture such as, Inside Out 2 or The Wild Robot, which was more heavily favored to win this category, I think. So this is just starting this running narrative of independent cinema, I think, having this big display.
This is like one of the best Oscars for independent cinema ever. Somebody could correct me. Maybe there are other ones, but like Blow winning over The Wild Robot. We'll get to No Other Land winning over a bunch of other things, and Anora winning over movies that were financed by huge studios, all of these things. So it's really great. I think the Flow win in particular was lovely. The Wild Robot's a good movie, so I don't want to knock it, but Flow has this independent spirit and this like spiritualism about it that's more abstract and harder to put your finger on, and something I just really appreciated about it. So I was happy to see that win. And I know last year it was because of love for Miyazaki, but this is year two of the oddity film in the animated category winning. Like we had Boy and the Heron last year. I think that's a really cool trend.
From there, we went into costume design, I believe. One of the things I liked about last year's and the change that they made was having the actors come up and talk specifically to each person about their performance, which I thought was absolutely beautifully done. But in our conversation last year, I remember specifically saying that I wish they had attributed this to down the line categories. It was great to see that they changed this up this year and had this done for costume design, as well as I think cinematography was the other one in which they utilized this method for. But it was so nice to see these people talked about in, a more endearing and meaningful way instead of just seeing their work on a screen with some music.
Yeah, and it's cool too because you have actors from the films represented, so they have a personal relationship with the costume designer, with the cinematographers. One of the things I think about with the Oscars is like your average Joe who maybe like doesn't like goes to the Oscars and is like, what are the great movies this year that I should catch up on? Like that's the door opening for them for film. So whatever they can learn about the craft categories, I think is a really good thing.
That also harkened back, which I like, was to Conan O'Brien's original statement about cinema and the importance of it and how many people it really involves, and the love and heart that goes. Oh,
I'm sorry, I had a yawn.
It really is.
It's 11 p.m. I'm working tomorrow.
And the heart that goes into, making a film and just the amount of moving pieces that are involved. I hope to see that going into next Oscars as well. Same with the stage, how it opened up in the back and revealed the orchestra.
Yeah,
I love that,
that was
they
awesome.
did that last year, and I love that they continued that this year.
Yeah.
So it did not get old for me. I just absolutely love seeing the orchestra play. Speaking of, they did that for original score, which was really fun.
Yes, and they played all of the scores. That was a great win too. I think ba-da-da-da. Yeah. Brutalist, iconic score immediately, and I think a great win. I mean, actually, the whole score category this year, I think, was great. I think any one of them could have won.
Ooh, let's get into Sean Baker's first win of the night, which was for Best Original Screenplay.
I would have preferred this go to Jesse Eisenberg, especially in hindsight, because Sean Baker ended up winning 4 Oscars tonight.
Yeah.
I think it would have been a really cool win. I love that screenplay for A Real Pain, but that's not the way the Oscars. It's not like there's 3 people in a room that says, oh, let's spread the love. Let's give this to Jesse Eisenberg. Let's give this to Anora. There could be people that voted for Anora, an original screenplay, and then voted for Brady Corbet in directing, and then it just ended up that way that he wins both. So it's just not the way it works, but I would have preferred Jesse Eisenberg, but I'm not mad that Sean Baker won.
Yeah, that being said, there was a lot of love spread, even though Anora won its 4 Oscars. We had Wicked winning production design and costume design. We had Dune Part 2 winning, sound and visual effects.
Brutalist winning cinematography, actor, and score. So that got some love. The Everything Everywhere All at Once here, and that's a good movie, and I'm not knocking it, but that won so many Oscars, and I'm like, Tar really went home empty-handed? Like, Tar didn't win anything? I look back this year, and you had a little bit of love for Emilia Perez. You had a little bit of love for Real Pain, a little bit of love for Anora, and a little bit of love for Brutalist. It does feel like we got a good summation of the year.
Yeah, which also speaks to the process as well, because everybody was, I mean, so many awards were going out to different people for the precursors, with the exception of some of the acting categories that were pretty much locks for this. There was some like interest of like, oh, what could happen throughout the season? It was kind of tiptoeing back and forth. And of course, Anora started to make its rise and continue that rise.
It's interesting. Anora won 0 Golden Globes and ended up winning all of these Oscars.
Going from there, I want to talk about some weird moments of the show. There was this weird tribute to 007. Like, if it was a 100-year or 50-year anniversary, I would understand, the tribute to James Bond. But in this case, I was just like, why are we having this performance right now? I don't see any relevance to it.
I guess, though, like what they're trying to do is, I think they gave honorary Oscars to the longtime producing team that held the rights to James Bond. And also they recently sold it to Amazon. So I think it was some recognition of that. But it was incredibly weird. And not only that, but like it was like a dance number.
Yeah,
with Margaret Qualley, that was.
And I love Margaret Qualley.
Yeah, but it was just odd, and she was
odd.
Yeah, and almost like highlights the weird sexism of James Bond movies, like in a way I didn't like. I saw no purpose in that, and I love Quincy Jones. I thought that having a specific ode to Quincy Jones was a little odd.
It fit a little bit because he passed away this year. That I understood more than this.
I understood it. It just, I don't know how necessary it was. I was starting to feel the length of this show in particular. I think I looked at my watch at 9:45 and I was like, we have 9 awards to go.
Yeah.
This is supposed to end at 10:30.
I thought it was going to end early, and then it ended up dragging.
Yeah, it started dragging. So I think that they planned one too many things. The first thing I would have cut would have been the James Bond thing.
Oh, there's a couple things I would cut. It would have been after Elma won for Best Original Song, and the woman, I don't know her name, but she just awkwardly and cringily started singing.
Oh yeah, she was trying to start a sing along that nobody took her up on,
and the music started playing her off while she was singing, but she didn't get the hint, so she just kept singing.
That was weird.
It was very awkward and very cringe.
Yeah.
I was just in the couch. And also Adrien Brody.
I have such an aversion to Adrien Brody. Listen, he is a wonderful actor, and he's so good in The Brutalist, and he completely deserved the award. Not knocking that part of it, but whenever he speaks,
what he had to say was fine, but he could have condensed everything he had to say into a third of the time in which he said it.
It's just so much drama and so much posturing and so many pregnant pauses. I feel for the guy, and I think it's great that he won an Oscar, and I think it's great that he's so passionate, but whatever he's doing comes off very self-absorbed to me. And
it's a lack of consideration for the time of every other person that wins.
I don't know, he just rubs me the wrong way. It has nothing to do with his talent. He's a wonderful actor.
Let's talk about speeches we did like. No Other Land winning for Best Documentary Feature.
This was the best.
I think this was the most nerve-wracking moment we had of the night, waiting for this award.
Yes.
Because we were just desperate for this to win. I am so happy it won. This speech was perfection. I think Basil and Yuval just put this issue into such simple perspective, one of oppression and just fighting for justice. Yeah. And that's something I think anybody can relate to, regardless of what side you might find yourself in. I think you need to claw yourself back from the extremism of those sides and realize just the practical effects of war and how they can affect people. The decisions governments make in tearing down homes or schools, those practical things just have such an effect on a community and a people that these are things that these policies are things we can stop now. They're simple things that we have a choice and we could stop them. And hopefully that speech gives way to more of that conversation.
Yeah, I hope so too. And this was, I was very nervous about this award because it affects like the Hollywood system, and I don't mean this in a tinfoil hat way, has like effectively shunned this movie by not distributing it. Yeah. Even if they agree with it, they said, I'm not willing to represent this. So that made me really concerned about its prospects at the Oscars. And I am very, very happy that despite that, this film really went against all odds and won a major award, even without distribution. It's crazy to me that the whole thing happened, but I'm very glad that they won. We've seen them speak in person. We've seen the film, and they are very eloquent individuals, and they have a very vast and acute understanding of this conflict. And I'm really glad that they got a moment on the national stage in order to highlight that. So major props to them. And my favorite win of the night by far.
Favorite win of the night. Another favorite win of the night would be I'm Still Here, winning for Best International Feature.
This is great.
The downfall of Emilia Perez.
Yeah. Well, this is both the downfall of Emilia Perez and also the surge of I'm Still Here, which, including us, we had not seen I'm Still Here until after the Oscars Oscar nominations came out. It was the last movie that we saw. There are so many good films in that category. Like Seed of the Sacred Fig, that was your #1 movie of the year.
Yeah.
It's a great film, but we just kind of knew that it wasn't going to win here. But I'm Still Here, when we saw it late, we reviewed it. I think it's just such a great and such an impactful film. So elegantly and respectfully made. And I'm really, really happy that it triumphed here.
It's funny. We actually were talking before the awards started, and we said if Anora wasn't going to win, what would be our number 2 to win Best Picture? And we both said I'm Still Here. It's definitely a movie that's only grown in my mind.
Agreed.
As much as I respect The Brutalist, I think as I continue to think about the movie, it's maybe a little bit too on the nose.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm Still Here is just so subtle in what it has to say.
Yeah, it would be fun to do like an update on The Brutalist, but I still love The Brutalist, but I saw it for a second time, and the second half of it didn't work quite as well for me as it did the first time. The more I think about it, the more some things just like feel overwritten about it. And I still think it's a massive achievement in film, but our like glowing review of it, I think has tempered a little bit since then. I'm Still Here, in quite the opposite way, is a movie that I'm still thinking about, months later. So
exactly. We were talking about the downfall of Emilia Perez. Yeah, it still held on to Best Original Song and Zoe Saldana, who is pretty much a lock for this category in Best Supporting Actress. I really liked her acceptance speech. I thought it was extremely heartfelt. There was just such a raw emotion there in her gratitude and the people that got her there into this moment. Like the way she thanked her family and she just started bawling. I'm really happy for her. I think for as much controversy there is about the film itself, you really have to give her credit because her performance is fantastic in that film. It was my favorite part of the film the first time we saw it. And even regardless of the controversy and how much you can say about the film and its creation and all that, the way she acted in that film, her character had the most to say, I think, in that film.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
She had the most screen time also.
Yeah.
Oddly. She's terrific in that film, and I think she got out of all this controversy relatively unscathed, and I think it's a deserving award. It's a movie I don't like at all, but she's very good in it. So one note about the show is I think they need to decide if they're going to use clips or not. So they use clips for the lead actor and lead actress categories, but not supporting, which I thought was really strange. I'm pro clips because again, the idea that there are people in the world that watch the Oscars and haven't seen these films, if they see a clip of a film that looks really interesting to them, then they'll probably go seek it out. Even if they're going to do, like Robert Downey Jr. said, something each about like each of the supporting actors. If they're going to do that, I think that's perfectly fine, but I think you have to still show like the little clips.
More uniformity?
Or just, consistency. I think it should be consistent the way that they're doing the awards, however they're doing it that year. It seemed like they were trying to have their cake and eat it too by category, and it just felt kind of odd to me.
I think that was a little bit due to the Carlos Sofia Gascon incident. I think because of that, they were trying to figure out a way. Well, I noticed that changed because I noticed, I'm sorry, who was it that presented? It was Emma Stone.
Yep.
She came up and she presented and she said this generic statement that covered all of the actresses.
Yeah.
Which was hilarious because, yes, as you said, with the Best Supporting Actress category, they all got their individual little thing.
It reminded me, do you remember when Bong Joon-ho won Best Director and then he went through each of the other directors nominated and gave this long thing about how great they are, and then he got to Todd Phillips and he's like, "Oh, I hear that you also make movies. That's good." He couldn't really find anything good to say about Todd Phillips. It's so funny. The final thing to talk about is Anora's just absolute sweep.
Yeah, Mikey Madison.
Mikey Madison is 100% deserving. I also really wanted to see Demi Moore win. I also really wanted to see Fernando Torres win. So I think no matter how that category shook out, I was going to feel a little bit disappointed. But at the same time, I can't knock. Like, Mikey Madison is great in Anora. So what am I going to say?
And honestly, just look at the nominees. I think we get so caught up in who won the award.
Yeah.
But just the fact that they were all nominated.
Yep.
That Fernando Torres got in, and that was a surprise.
Yeah, Demi Moore. For a body horror movie.
At the beginning of this Oscar season, nobody would have suspected that The Substance would have done as well as it did, or Demi Moore would have done as well as she did.
Yep.
And regardless of winning the award or not, there's just joy in being nominated and recognized in this way. So we just got to keep that in mind, I think, sometimes too.
So moving to Sean Baker, who won 4 Oscars tonight, including editing. Even though Anora is a little too long, so much of the humor lies in the way that film is edited. Us being proponents and supporters of independent film, there is nobody that is a stronger supporter of independent film than Sean Baker. His first films were made for literally like a couple $1,000s. He shot Tangerine on an iPhone. He has been at the Independent Spirit Awards for like each one of his films. And I'm just really happy that he got recognition on this level, and I hope that it just shines more light on the independent film community and helps those movies get made. I think Sean Baker is completely deserving of everything that he won tonight, but at the same time, I have to think about what this does for the industry too, and I hope that this moves the industry in the direction of being more supportive towards indie films.
And that speaks a lot to his thank you speech when he won Best Director.
Yeah.
And he talked about the importance of independent cinema. He talked about how Anora was made with like, what, a crew of 40 people?
Yeah, no distributor.
Yeah.
Premiered at Cannes.
Yeah. It was very inspiring the way he said, if you have a story, go out and tell it. It doesn't matter how many people you have or the equipment you have. Like, if you have a story, go and tell it. The importance and the power is in the story. And I think that speaks to a lot of what was nominated this year. I mean, you have to give credit to the Brutalists. They did almost the same thing. The very low budget. Nickel Boys did so much with so little. There were so many films this year that were in that same vein. Like we were talking about at the beginning of this, it's just an ode to independent cinema this night turned out to be.
I never in a million years thought like Sean Baker's going to win Best Director someday at the Oscars. I thought he would always just be this rebel indie filmmaker that was like making great stuff that was number one on critics' top 10 list, but never got nominated for Oscars. So it's cool that those two parts of like film culture are starting to blend a little bit more now, and Anora is a great winner, especially in the history of the Oscars.
All right, and that's it for our discussion on this year's Oscar telecast. Let us know what you thought in the comments of this year's winners. As always, thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you next time.